that adaptability, that trial and error, this material plane business, it is our gift. That's why Ra would call us masters of the material plane, because somehow, some way, we find a way, and that is through resilience. So not just a gift for survivability on the material plane, but there's this inherent persistence and a depth, this kind of pointed resource that is about moving forward towards something, despite everything, despite pain and suffering and any kind of recriminations from either the mind or from the outer world. We still have some gumption to pick ourselves up again and to try again. It's just part of the nature of what it is that we are. And this is all because of discovery. So the mysteriousness that is there in the third line is this ability or capacity that the martyr mind has, because that's what we're talking about, martyr minds. So that's the 3-5 and 3-6. This capacity to be able to discover, and not just discover what does or doesn't work, but what is it that's going to make a difference? What is it that's going to change things? Because change is a keynote for the 3. So wherever you see a 3, that's why Laveena's life work is innocent instrument of fate who can step in and change the fate of others. We're talking about the sun in gate 30. Change the fate of others through learning, experience, and discovery, because this is part of the nature of being. And we know one of the pains in the material plane is about bonds made and broken. Made and broken, made and broken, made and broken. We associate that with negativity, thinking that there's something wrong with breaking a bond. And not any of us are able to do, conscious 3 now I'm talking, able to do that without learning how to make it less awkward or shocking. I mean, we just do it, and there's not a lot of social acceptance for, let's say, as an example, Laveena's changed her phone number so many times over the decades I've been alive. Cell phone, just change it, change it, change it. Oh, I gave my number out to too many people and I don't, prefer, change it, change it, change it. You know, that would be abhorrent to a 4th line person. So it's in this process of bonds made and broken that there's this comparative measuring that can take place, what it is that leads us towards discovery of what doesn't work and the possibility of change, which ultimately can lead to the expression of a kind of power. And that power is inherent in the resilience and the adaptability of the 3. Okay, so the 3 on the material plane, it is the material plane. 3 is where we make money, on the material plane. So you can see that today's conversation is going to be about the martyr heretic and the martyr role model, because those are the 2 of the 12 profiles that are conscious 3s. So in this particular configuration, we're looking at personality dominated themes. So in terms of the personality, the martyr mind is the one that in the shadow or not self is going to be like, poor me, why me? Why now? Why again? This constant recrimination, self-recrimination that leads one to such incredibly debilitating pessimism that they are their own worst enemy when they're operating out of integrity and out of alignment. So we'll begin with, when we come to recognize the pattern of moving deeper into true profile meaning you combine the line quality plus the color, we're looking at our spiraling of the evolutionary imprints of the cycles of experience that each human being is here to make as we spiral through space and time, learning about the differentiation. Human design is a science of differentiation. The differentiation of one's motivational frequency. We begin with the teacher, right? We begin with the martyr teacher who is here to be a heretical teacher. And this color line combination that we're going through each of these profiles that start with the 3rd line mind, leading us to the 11 variations of what it is to be a 3-5. We always start with the 1. And so this is a person who's here to teach from their mistakes, really, truly dive into what made that mistake. You know, what is it that is a mistake? Where is the flaw? Where is the lie? Remember, 3rd lines discover the flaw. There's nobody better than a 3, wherever you see 3, that's going to trial and error and adapt and figure out where's the lie in this, where's the flaw in this. So this is what this mind as an outer authority is here to do and teach from. Then from the heretical teacher, we shift to the guru. And then from the martyr guru, from that teacher to guru, now we see martyr guru, heretical guru. And then the heretical guru shifts to the priest. And as we shift from martyr guru to martyr priest, we now see the martyr priest, heretical priest. Hi, that's me. Okay, so this is where I'm teaching you from my experience. Then, as the heretical priest shifts to a body that has a prophet underneath, we also shift and see the martyr side shifting from martyr priest to martyr prophet, conscious personality construct. The heretical color shifting, the heretical body shifting from the color prophet to the color 5 messenger. And then the martyr, who is a color 5 messenger, so a martyr messenger shifting to heretical messenger, where then that shift moves from martyr messenger, heretical messenger to heretical Buddha. Okay, then we have the martyr Buddha, who is also potentially, there are some people out there who become heretical Buddhas because that is what they are imprinted with. And all of this, relative to the way in which we are going to experience ourselves, has to do with the life work, because that's where this is coming from. This is the 70%. So when it comes to your availability to recognize how all of this works in you or in your client, it has to be that you, of course, try and see what it's like for you, because the more in alignment you are, the more you recognize or self-realize what it's like for you, the more in integrity you can be when you're in an outer authority for somebody else. The cleaner, the clearer your instrument, this body, which is the vehicle of the life, the more likelihood that other people are going to understand you. When we get to the single theme at the end of all of this is that transitional profile. And the transitional profile for the 3 mind, martyr mind, always, always, always is going to be a color 6 Buddha mind. And then the role model body, which is the teacher underneath. So the fullest experience and expression of what it is that this person is here to do, this martyr Buddha role model teacher, is hold together in that spiraling chain of change. There we go. Spiraling chain of change. We're going to see that these are our harmonic people that are actually like the glue that hold us together in our evolutionary cycle as we spiral through space and time and have our imprinting. So obviously, this is the complexity that we see mostly in the main profile. Yeah? In the main profile, we have all these different variations, but in the transitional profile, we just have the one. It's same as the other patterns that we've already taken a look at. So, 3-5 is the martyr heretic. Quote, it is a very difficult configuration, unquote, raw. So, not that it's, everybody has their own trip, everybody has their own challenges. Not that it's an excuse to further martyr yourself and go, ooh, unfair, life's so unfair. I remember, does anybody else as a 3-5 remember saying that as a kid? Why is life so unfair? Life is unfair. Because in this construct as a 3-5, this is a body that attracts attention. Yeah, the heretic that attracts projection, because other people are going to project on this physical form, this body, wherever you see 5. Right? So life seems unfair. What's so obvious about the program is, yes, it's terribly unfair. We are not created equal. Anybody telling you that does not know their human design, obviously. And so why is life unfair for the 3-5? It's because 5 attracts attention. We're unconscious that we're attracting attention. And after all, we do not have conscious access to the unconscious element of our design. So if you've got an unconscious profile, public role, what other people see in you that you are oblivious to, You don't have any access to that. So it's not who you think you are, this body, this vehicle, which is the life. It's not part of what you're consciously processing mentally as you go about your life. Mentally, we know what we think about all day long mainly has to do with where our openness is. There is no choice in that. Our openness is where we are taking in life, and it's how we mentally process life, and it's part of our outer authority that we give to others. So the fact is, we're not even aware of what we are, who are 3-5, or anybody with fifth line body, quite frankly. We're not aware of what we're broadcasting or putting out into the world. But this frequency is attracting attention. And is it the right kind of attention, as in correct attention? When you're aligned, then you have this capacity to attract the attention that is right for you to fulfill your life's work. And then life is a little bit less unfair. That's quite nice. Okay, so let's talk about the martyr mind. This is where Murphy's Law comes in. There you are with your personality 3 that is consciously in recognition or response or impact or observation through a process of evaluating through reflecting through your lunar cycle. Those are the 4 different kinds of vehicles, human vehicles we can have with the 3-5. If you know about Murphy's Law, it's what can go wrong or be a mistake, definitely will. It will. So if anything's going to go wrong, it will. Wrong, not as in bad, as in that didn't work. So the whole part of what we're able to do or be here for is to see that all the things that go wrong can and will go wrong. And so we are the ones who can help make sure that others don't end up going down that same lost track. That is our value. That is our gift. Kind of like the person, if you're going hiking and you got somebody in the lead and somebody is going to come across all the bramble thorns and all the bushes and all the fallen branches. They've got their knife, machete. My dad would carry a machete in his car when I was growing up on the island of Hawaii. He said it was for the boyfriends because fifth line attracted attention, this body, right? He was joking. But the machete, you use that machete to carve a path for those that come behind you. And that, archetypally speaking, what we can say about 3-ness is that we are the ones who go first. Because this is where the material plane lies, and this is where new things are tried, and this is where, well, we tried that and it didn't work. It failed. Where's my machete? Okay. So the 5 body has a reputation to uphold. Is it the right reputation that this being is attempting to uphold? Because what happens to a 5 is that when they're placed under pressure, they need to be able to fulfill that projection that's coming their way. So if they don't fulfill that projection that's coming their way, the way that projection is framed, and not that we're in control of it at all, just that whatever projection is coming, or expectation is another word you can use to understand this, whatever it is, that positive initially projection field, what happens is the price that we're going to pay if we enter into something incorrectly, our reputation goes up in smoke. Unfortunately, how we are thought of, how we are spoken of, amongst all the other ways our reputation could go up in smoke. People talking about you behind your back, strangers talking about you behind your back, because if you let anybody in too close and they are not trustworthy, it is a potential that they could ruin your reputation in revenge, or trying to get back at you for whatever perceived slight or flaw that they expected they would get from you. And I've seen it many times where if I let somebody in too close, invariably what happens is if I didn't succeed in upholding that expectation of what they wanted from me, they may in fact start to go backbiting or talking negative about me because I didn't fulfill their expectations. It has nothing to do with my reputation. It's them wanting to besmirch or besmear my reputation. It is what it is. And then the martyr mind, when it's freed from thinking, I did something wrong, I'm bad, I'm flawed, or they're wrong, they're bad, they're flawed, appropriation of trying to assign guilt, which is a not self tendency, which is a seven-centered reality, which is not what we are, not what we're moving towards as nine-centered, awakened, enlightened beings, just accepting what we are. So this element on its own, as far as the fifth line quality, if we talk about what 3 is and what 5 is, 3 is the top of the lower trigram, 5 is the middle of the upper trigram. So we're talking about upper trigram. We're talking about a body that is transpersonal, a body that is able to impact strangers. Good word for the 5, yes? So what you're looking at with Murphy's Law is that mistakes will be made. You see Laveena exemplifying this in my classes. I've accepted it. I'll say, hey, if you hear me misspeak, please let me know. I'm not embarrassed to have you correct me. If, for whatever reason, I say this word, when I mean that word, please help me catch it. Yeah? Because mistakes can happen. So what happens with a third line personality is that we're going to end up with mistakes, and that is just the rule of life. Trial and error. The road to success is paved with mistakes, paved with failure. And it's not a failure if you can look at it as a learning opportunity. Look at all mistakes. So I like to reframe it as MISS-mistakes, like a clapperboard. Take 1, take 2, mistakes. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't go and correct that mistake. Just as an example, trial and error, bonds made and broken. The mind wants to break the bond in order to achieve a stronger alliance or bond. It's just the way that this works. So the detachment has nothing to do personally with anything other than mechanics between that person and that other person. So not to take it personally is the biggest thing that you can help any 3 understand. Okay? So what we're looking at, the problem in the homogenized society is that 3s are deeply misunderstood. They don't understand themselves in their own process. Nobody else understands them unless they are also a 3 and can describe it to them, like what it's like. What happens is they become, Rob uses this term quite interestingly, and so I'm going to use the direct quote. He says, how they are abused for their process. The mistake is a way for them to get to discovery. Okay, so unfortunately for the 3 5s, there is so much projection on them that they are going to deliver right off the bat. And yet, if you see somebody like Laveena, wide split, emotional, taking a long time to get to the maturity place where one can see correctly, because my line qualities on the personality nodal axis are 6. The dilemma of this personality is, yes, of course, I'm going to be able to deliver. And yet, trial and error has to come first, because that's the only way we can find our way to success, especially success for a projector. So it takes some time. This martyr mind. So the martyr can end up being punished by not being able to pull off what is expected, 5th line body, of them, unfortunately. And it's come up a couple times, so I'll share it. The memory of what it felt like when my very first, it was not my first, she was my first advanced analyst. Becky Markley shared with me about being a heretic. She's a 5-1. What it's like to be so careful of the expectation field that other people place upon you, that you know you can deliver on whatever it is that they're expecting of you, because if you don't, reputation goes up in smoke, burned at the stake, if you will. So what a martyr really is about this capability of being punished simply for not being able to pull off what is expected, and you get punished for it, and regardless of whether you have the best plans and intentions, nobody cares. Nobody cares if you came from, this wonderful, gorgeous compassion or bleeding heart or whatever it is that led you to the engagement with the other, where you attempted to pull off what was expected and you didn't. The biggest fear that this experience of this conscious awareness in form has is to disappoint someone, as far as Someone who had, entrusted me, this body, vehicle, life, and mental construct that's living this life, me with something that they really, truly expected or wanted. And so that's another reason why to release all expectations, particularly if you're very abstract in nature. Let go of expectations, because you cannot fulfill expectations. Yeah, especially with an undefined heart center, it's just like, nope, no promises, do my best, we'll see, we'll see what happens. So we cannot fulfill the projection field because we don't know what the projection field is. For one thing, it's unconscious. For another, it's that other person and their process. So we're not able to fulfill exactly to the letter what they might have expected from us. But we can learn from our experiences. And so long as they understand that mistakes are a process, they won't expect us to have a flawless performance, because we can't. It's a third line process. And when we're labeled as incompetent or inferior and taking the punishment or the blame, that's when the martyr shows up. Yeah? You're the one who is going to get beaten or flogged or whatever the case may be. Reputation going up in smoke, particularly with this 3-5. That's why, one of the reasons why it's so difficult. So in most cases for not self, it takes quite a few external beatings in order for the internal beatings, mental beatings, I'm wrong, I'm bad, something wrong with me, I'm flawed, I can't do anything right. It takes a long time, 7 years, first 7 years of one's life, and boom, now you have the martyr mind so deeply ingrained in thinking that there's something wrong with them. Okay? So nobody more vicious that I've seen, and I've experienced it not only for myself as myself, but in relationship where I was in relationship with somebody who was a 3-5, I could see it so clearly, how vicious they could be to themselves and how that automatically sets up failure in future. So this one had whatever you believe to be true is true for you. Believing you're at fault or to blame or there's something wrong. This is how they can be programmed to feel about themselves when they're not making decisions that are correct. So when you're not making correct decisions, you lack cognitive potential or the mental intelligence that is linked to being in a body that's more relaxed because of your deconditioning process, being in a body that's operating in alignment. You have no intelligence when you're not operating correctly. But when you are operating correctly, here's a quote from Ra, quote, "It can bang into things or have things banged into it that don't work out. And this is how we discover." They discover, in Ra's terms. They discover from failure. They discover from mistake. This is the thing that must be protected if you're going to raise any kind of 3. When you find them making a mistake, celebrate it. Isn't that a tremendous shift from what the homogenized world tells us? Celebrating it means discovering from the mistake, ask them, what did you learn? Any child, anyone. Oh, wonderful. How different would all of our 3s be? And if you look at those 12 public roles, profiles, human design profiles, look at the predominance of 3 in there. So many 3s, and as we know, the first 30 years of their life, the 6-line beings have a 3rd-line process. What if the entire world were to celebrate the mistakes and the failures just as much as they celebrated the wins? How different of a world would we be in? Okay, that's Laveena's preachy thing. I'm going to go back to this presentation. When we're correct, how we discover is from failure and from flaws or mistakes so that we can see what's quote unquote wrong or what could be changed on the material plane or in the systems or in the business or whatever it is that this person is engaged with. And obviously, when we're operating in alignment through our decision-making strategy, being our own authority, then we're able to align ourselves to a decision-making process that is going to free us from martyr this, martyr that, from all the suffering in the trial and error, because an awake 3-5 does not suffer not suffering from the material mistakes, but teaches from those mistakes. There's nothing like personal life experience to teach from. Nothing. Nothing. That's why we have wise people who are older that can turn around and teach our younger people about these kinds of mistakes. And older, younger, doesn't matter as far as the age gap, but just that we have experienced it ourselves, which is what threes are here to do. And then instead of this tiresome and endless suffering and martyr mind, the sorrow and the pain and the downtroddenness of that, we have people who are excited to make a mistake because, wow, I learned something, I learned something. So let's start with the martyr teacher, whose motivation is fear, combined with the heretical teacher, whose body is here to be a teacher. So this is teacher, right? So in the 3-5, the first one that we come across, this personality color motivation is about resolving fear. Intended motivation as far as the way that they're here to be correct with this fear motivation is resolving fear because they've dug down into the mistakes and they found out how to teach from the mistake. So a martyr personality with a first color teacher mentality is here to have intelligence gathering be part and parcel of how they're here to discover life. So their motivation being fear, intelligence gathering, driving to get at the information. Driving to get the information they require in order, because they're banging into things and they're determined to discover, in order that they teach what does not work, what is flawed, what is broken about life, about this life, not you. This is not about you. Because remember what 3 is. If 1, 2, and 3 line qualities are about the gate process, 4, 5, and 6 are about the other side of that process within the channel. The 3 is about banging into the material plane, and we're on the material plane here and now, right? So if we think about this logically, you have somebody who's banging into things and is determined to, pointed to, having some kind of discovery. And you have all kinds of this motivation here is about people not letting go just because, oh, that didn't work. They're going to dive into, okay, what is it that didn't work? Dismantle it, take it apart. If you've ever seen a child who likes to take things apart and put it back together, that kind of thing, where they're going to learn from that trial and error. This martyr is not going to quit. Martyrs don't. Martyrs don't. They're not going to quit just because it doesn't work right away. They're driven to dig into things. If it's a mathematical problem and they just can't get it, they're not going to let go of that. They might go research, they might go investigate, because underneath the mind is this color 1 teacher, and this color 1 teacher is going to dig and dig and dig until it figures out what was flawed and what went quote unquote wrong. Not that there isn't any wrong, good, bad, right, wrong. It's completely amoral, this system. And when you get to that place of amorality, truly, you see that there's nothing wrong with anybody else. They're all helplessly, choicelessly living out their nature of being, either in a really skewed way or in a more aligned way. And neither of one of those are good, bad, right, or wrong. It is the martyr teacher that discovers, because they're looking for that solid foundation underneath what went wrong. They're searching for the absolute. So if they're a martyr teacher whose personality construct is the cross of explanation and it's a 4th line mind, they're digging for the absolute of the answers that are a mistake. What is it that is being fed to us as a lie? Martyr teachers take nothing for granted. That's the 3, says this might all be bullshit. So the magic of the 3 is that it's not going to take anything for granted. It can't take anything for granted. It's going to dig. It's going to dig. And it's going to find here with the teacher line, or quality. Let me rephrase that. The martyr mind line quality with the teacher color, motivational frequency of fear. What happens in the end is that their experiential process becomes something that is deeply, deeply intelligent. The most intelligent of all the colors, first color. Mind, okay? Because They're here to be deeply influential as having been there, done that, dug in. Here's the foundation. I've unearthed it. I'm going to work my way through it. I'm going to trial and error. And here's the flaw. Here's what's wrong. Here's what doesn't work. So a martyr mind looks for the flaw, the loophole, the error, the glitch, the thing that is a dilemma, because if you're always attracted to this and you don't exalt the error, your mind goes, what's wrong with me? I went wrong again. And if we're not operating in alignment, we know that through the genetic imprint, what can tend to happen is we get the promise of paradise. We look for the harmony. We look to be the role model. We look, instead of wanting to be the martyr, because that is our process, our mind goes, well, I don't want to deal with that. I want to stay above it all. Instead of dealing with the real world, seeing that the real world is flawed, and because it's not trained to see the exaltation in their mistakes, it will see itself as flawed, something wrong. They're going to suffer. They're going to be martyrs, martyring themselves for the quote-unquote off cause that isn't something for them to teach from. So if we look at the combination of martyr, teacher with this motivation of fear, and then we look at the heretical body that is sensitive to acoustics. Anywhere you see a fifth line quality, fifth color, fifth tone, fifth bass, we're talking about acoustic or resonant frequencies. So this is a body that is very sensitive to the frequency field of things, and as this trial and error mind is trying to dig down deeper and deeper with this fifth line body that's sensitive to how things sound, what we see then is that underneath that color is a teacher, and that determination is appetite, meaning, do you have an appetite for this knowledge, or for this material, or for this person, or this food, or whatever it is that you're going to take in to your brain-body system and this construct of this form, this life, this vehicle that has a life of its own, that is alive, that is unconscious to the mental reality. So we have a resonance of a color one teacher that is on both sides, yeah? The martyr teacher, heretical teacher. So what we know about this body when it's operating in alignment, we know that the way in which it operates is that the brain is going to be in resonance with the personality construct. So by being able to dig deep into their own resources of the resonance principle, what the illusory experience of this is like is, I think, therefore, I decide. Because of the resonance principle between color one teacher body and color one teacher mind. And that is quite a dilemma. A mind that's built perfectly for its body's process, because teacher. But a mind that has an ego trip of thinking, I'm in charge because, look, I made a decision and I got away with it mentally. It thinks it's making the decision. And so mentally, for a longer period of time, it can get away with making mental decisions and not have the immediacy of the pain of frustration, anger, bitterness, disappointment, depending on its type. So the heretical teacher, with its determination of appetite, is a neuronal network that is geared towards investigation. So in other words, the pure situation in which the body creates the investigating infrastructure based upon. So a fifth line body wants to change the world. It can. This is what its heresy is. It changes the world. But the body, having this depth of investigation, has to come to this very specific and very honed orientation through also the witness consciousness, allowing the body to run the life, not the other way around. So this first color, to take advantage of that. How do we take advantage of this, says the mind? You let the body run the show, in other words. Because any mental advantages that you try to take from an uninformed place, you're using your not self shadow state mind to make the decision, and then it's like you're just in this endless spiral, this endless loop of being caught up in mistakes that don't have value. relative to the heretical process of what you are going to call others to investigate as you are a teacher. When you're a teacher, you must first be the student in order to teach. Yes? So this is saying something about the 3-5 that is a 1-1 underneath, that they're going to be incredibly absorbed in things. Yeah, they're digging, they're getting down to the bottom. And what their body is doing is it's bringing them to that level of authoritative process when it comes to what it's heresy, the new thing that's nascent. Nascent is meaning new. When it comes to this body living its life, it's attracted to the thing that is most practical. Body must be practical, right? In other words, it is essential that this body teacher get to the place where it can make the call from an informed place. In other words, a heretical teacher is going to end up with the possibility of investigating or leading this vehicle, body is the life, to a place where investigation, it can be in an area that is quite different than what the personality thinks it should be. Because remember, we're dealing with two totally different calculations. So this trial and error, suddenly discovering something, didn't even know it was there, but the body, the brain, is actually working on something else. And so if you make mental decisions, you lose your cognitive difference. You lose your intentionality to which this body and this vehicle was born. So if we shift now in our evolutionary spiral to the color 2, guru, heavy in Sanskrit, the guru body, this shift is interesting. We're moving away from the nose in that sense of the teacher heretic. We're moving to the taste heretic. So we're looking at a heretical body whose determination is taste. We're moving from smell, you could say, to the mouth. We're moving to the taste system. This is linked to even though you might not have it defined in your design, it's linked to the survival intelligence, the splenic system. So there's this natural potential for a heretical body, brain-body system, that is a guru underneath, guru, opening others to the call, where there's this taste, so picky, so specific, that has a natural potential for embodying the heretical principle of what this form came here to live. So there's nothing to investigate on the body side. There's a natural potential that is going to be expressed through their holistic design. If you've never had a holistic analysis, this is the kind of thing that you would be integrating into that. So searching through breathing. It's not investigating brain at all. It's a very protected, and at the same time it's a kind of searching brain-body system. And it's the way in which they're going to take in prana or energy, the life force, this searching through breathing. Now on the martyr mind side, we're going to shift from color teacher to guru teacher. And again, we get that through the evolutionary spiral, the 88-degree offset of the imprinting between personality and design. A martyr mind with a color 2 guru motivation of hope is going to be somebody is not investigating, but relying on an intelligence of knowing that there's something worth waiting for that nobody else has a sense for quite yet. So you know that there is something coming down the pipeline, or you can sense that there is something worth waiting for, being opened up to the call. The martyr teacher, the real difference between a martyr teacher and a martyr guru is that hope is something that is definitely a less active principle, and teacher is something that is more, okay, let's investigate, let's figure this out. So the real difference in the way that those two kinds of beings are going to be perceived in society or in the world around them, yes, they're similar. Surface, third line mind, martyr mind. But underneath, color 1 and color 2, very dissimilar, like extreme. It could be the same day, same time, same city, but we have a slight difference in the shift, if it's just a little bit off, you would see that there are very different beings in the way that they operate and in the way that they're perceived. So this is a common question. People say, well, how come, my cousin and I were born the same day, but we have different, times or slightly different processes? Here it is, because it's so different underneath. A martyr mind with a color 1 teacher process, again, motivated by fear, is able to make its discovery and as an outer authority will be well received. So it will, because it's found that foundational process, because it dug down deep, and that outer authority being well received is so different than maybe potentially someone who isn't doing that foundational learning, if you will, of what it is that led to that mistake. The color 1 teacher has a sensitivity to those things that are not yet common as far as a recognition capacity. Maybe they're not able to explain to others how they discovered that. If we look at the kind of brain-body system where the color underneath, instead of teacher, heretical, body is guru, maybe not being able to necessarily get to that place like the teacher, get to that place of where people comprehend where they're coming from. It's kind of like, how if you were raised like me in public school, we were told that we had to show proof of our process in math. My husband is a guru, and he didn't want to show that process, failed one of his classes because no, I got the answer because I just know how that works. I'm not going to show you my process. Guru is not about showing you the process. As far as a different kind of martyr, because mentally, even though the color 1 still might be teacher, the brain-body system has a different kind of functioning. We're not having to show the depth of our research and investigation in the sense. So then what can happen is they can be ridiculed. Nobody believes them, because they know what is worth waiting for, because they're not a teacher in the physical sense, in the brain-body system sense. They have no way of being able to explain how they discovered or how things work. And so it's a very different 3-5 martyr, heretic process. So you can grasp this if you attune to the fact that your brain system, brain system in align with the mental motivation, that there's a streamlining and an advantage of that. So this goes back to answering the question, what's the difference between having a resonance principle on the color level versus a dissonance principle on the color level between brain-body system and your mind? In other words, when you're a color 1 teacher, this profile, public role of 3-5, you get locked in, and it's a specific lock that you're not open to up to any other possibility or being any different, because there's this resonance principle. Think of it like being defined in a channel. You know how defined in a channel is very fixed? We're not going to be different than anything than what we are because it's fixed, it's unique. This is our locking inness. So the 3-5 teacher and the way that they approach life is that the way that they look at things can't really speak for the whole process. Obviously, none of us can speak for the whole process because they're just foundation. Yeah? Martyr, teacher, heretical, teacher, foundation. Whereas if we look at the 2, there's something that actually doesn't come from investigation, the heretical guru. We're looking at something else that comes out of nowhere. Where'd that come from? It has just as much value if you can't prove your work as far as where you got the answer. With this kind of body, the heretical 5th line, color 2, guru body. So the thing that can be discovered on the 3rd line mind side, it can be stretched and pulled on and experienced just as much as the teacher who validates their work. The guru can also be of value too. They are a kind of bridge, like the transitional profiles, harmonic profiles themselves. We're looking at they're a kind of bridge to the next iteration. So a mini version of that. Not dissonance, but creativity between profiles, because they're not locked into the box like this next one, Martyr, Heretic. Now we're looking at the next step up, which is Color 2 Guru, on both the mind and the body side. So the mind of the Martyr, being guru-like, motivation of hope again. We're looking at a heretical determination guru. It's about taste, really different. So the alignment of the two colors, and in other words, a brain-body system that is oriented towards its unique and highly specialized sensitivity. Pickiness, anywhere you see two. Pickiness, very picky. Okay? A mind that's ready to work with what it finds, the body finds, tasteful, because you have the resonance principle. So the Martyr mind with the Color 2 Guru is able to find your weakest points because they see the demons that ride you and shatter your barriers. They shatter the barrier to whatever it is that's holding you back from being open to a call, because that's what 2s do on the color side, if we recall. So the ultimate ability is finding the flaw in the other. This is for outer authority. It's not about trying to figure out the flaws in you. You have no flaws. When it comes to the other, they're not flawed either. It's just that there is something that's holding them back from that frequency field of being available because they've got their barriers up. Maybe it's pain or suffering from not self-behavior that was decades in the making. So the guru finds that weakest point, shatters that barrier. And of course, this expression of their life is about waiting for the specific call, which is that person I'm going to bang into that I am called to shatter. When it comes to that fire that sets them off because they've answered a call. Here, now, especially when we go to fire on the body side, the heretical guru shifts into the heretical priest. And the priest is a manipulator. If we think about what color 3 is on the body side, we're talking now about temperature. Okay? 3 is temperature. It's either going to be hot or cold, this priest. So the priest is a trial and error process, heretical priest, that is changing things, and it has material value. So the heretical priest, body, right? Body's a life, has a priest underneath, trial and error process of changing things. What are we changing? 5s are here to change the world. They can. Because the 5 puts out a call. It puts out the call. And the call that the 5 heretical body is doing with its priestliness or priestessness or whatever you want to call it, with whatever it's preaching about, it's going to be about finding the material value in life, the physical plane value. So we can change things, we can affect things from the body, which is the vehicle that is the life. When this is the trial and error process where we have all about change and the way that we do things, there's no change if we don't have endings of cycles of experience in order to find growth. So the repeating pattern of what a 3 is, the 3 is going to bonds made and broken, and be able to discern what's ready to make that change by putting out its heresy on the body side, and that heresy on the body side is going to come out with a kind of do this or don't do that, because this is the way that that person is programmed to be able to interpret the material value, what works and what does not work, especially when it comes to material plane. Now, 3rd color body, priest or priestess, however you want to label that, we are about the organizing of others. So 3s are pathfinders, pioneers, you could say, because we are the ones who are going to be the best testers of anything. Because if anything's going to go wrong, you bet your bottom dollar, we're going to discover it, we're going to come across it, we're going to come into contact with it, we'll feel it, we may die from it. But then again, this is the process of a part of our service. Tried that, mushroom, fell down dead. If I got resuscitated, hey, don't eat that mushrooms. Those are not healthy. Okay, so the expression of the essence of what we have discovered and then being able as an embodiment of this heretical priestess, being able to contribute that level of awareness or recognition or response or information or reflection or evaluation. It's not about us going out there and opening up some kind of religious institution. It's not. It's just preaching. Yeah, we're manipulators of the material plane is what we do. Priests tell you, don't do that. What not to do. The main line of any priesthood is what not to do. We protect you from going astray, from not being embraced by whatever it is that your goals may be. The threes are here to say, don't do that. I found out it's no good, it's terrible, it's awful, it hurts, the material plane, ouch. So you cannot think about the three without understanding this lock that happens at the third color level onto the material plane. The illusion, obviously, is that this is the lock on the material plane. And it's still, we live in an illusion of separation. There's nothing separate. It's just part of the delusion that we live under in this current Maya and in this current age, thinking that we are all separate. Even though we have bodies that are able to individuate, we are still a human cell within the global human organism. So the growth on the material plane and the development of the material plane, we are material plane manipulators. I keep saying we because this is my body. The heretical priest whose determination is thirst and either being hot or cold. My husband's a hot, I'm a cold. So I'm a heretic that's here to cool people down. You ever notice that if it's not about Laveena, Laveena can rise to the occasion, that's what the 5 does, has some stamina, that's what a 5 does, and being able to calm or cool things down, so long as my own frequency field, I'm well-resourced because my emotional system is in a place of capability, well-resourced, not overheated, even physically. If I'm overheated because the AC broke, or it's just really hot and it's not keeping up with this Arizona heat, that makes it harder for me to think or process, to cognate, because the brain is overheated. So when you have a priest brain, and this is, again, hot or cold, heretical priest brain, hot or cold, we're looking at a dietary regimen that is a transformer. It's either going to be hot or cold. Generally, we say that it is about the temperature of the body being the barometer of whether it's hot or cold. In experimentation, I have noticed that it doesn't have to be so strict or stringent, not just from me, but my husband being hot. Same thing I'm seeing with him. So, of course, remember, everyone is their own authority. Some days during the winter times, I might need warmer than room temperature because I'm feeling overly, you know? I used to love really long hot baths. Can't stand them anymore. So the body changing, the body differentiating. And so your barometer is you and your own authority. When we look at the knowledge as far as where it comes from on the complete profile chain, Ra calls them chains, when we get to the tonal cognition level, it'll tell us whether we have a steamy heretic, the hot, or we have a cool cat, the cold. And when we shift over from the martyr color that is guru hope to Laveena color priest mind, this is a motivation that gets locked onto desire. That's the motivational frequency, locked onto things. Again, wanting to organize things because that's what the 3 is drawn to do. So if we look at the heretical hot priest, they can be tone 1, 2, or 3. And this is the kind of heretic that's going to steam everybody up and gets, let's say, stoned in a hurry. And the heretical cold priest, stoned as in they're stoned because of their reputation going up in smoke. So people are going to stone you or burn you at the stake, as an example, not stoned as in smoking stoned. Okay, so the heretical cold priest is going to be 4, 5, and 6 tonal cognition. This is a heretic that cools everybody out. And it's very interesting to think about that. I am the color 3, cold, heretical priest, that is tone 5, I'm feeling cognition. So when I attune and I'm able to access the body's felt sense in recognition of how the body feels, it's more likely that I have the capability of cooling things down. Yeah, cooling things down. Coming from my own personal perspective, being aware of what is right for me to organize, human organization at times, not just information and systems, because I'm a projector type. Okay, so we're looking at the martyr, priest, whose motivation is desire and locked onto things, with the heretical priest body, whose determination is thirst, either being hot or cold. So to be locked on is about getting something through on the material plane, to make us be able to drive through no matter what. Those are very strong words. I say make, yeah? If you've got an initiative kind of design, as in you're a manifested energy, so much more powerful than the projected body that is living life in accordance with recognition and formal invitation, because there are certain things we cannot inform the other like a manifester could, versus a generator vehicle where the body can respond and take action, maybe spontaneously if they're non-emotional. So remember, there are all different layers and levels to this. It's always coming back to surface knowledge of what you are here to operate in alignment with. Now we shift to the martyr, that is color for profit, and the heretical color for profit. And that is a motivation of need. Profit, 3-5, 3 martyr, profit, mind, and heretical body, profit, brain-body system. So if it's motivation of need, this is a really interesting place when you look at colors, is that the 4th color, motivation need, is easy to transfer. Now the mind's always going to transfer, doesn't matter. It's going to happen. We are binary, it is what it is. But on the color for profit side, what you're looking at is this capacity to be able to recognize precisely, or respond to, or initiate precisely what is necessary. This is a very special thing. It can be transferred to all of the different ways that one could be motivated, but of course that's not the aligned way, but it can see a lot of different ways, or be aware of, I should say, be aware of a lot of different ways that the difference of knowing exactly what is needed is possible, or a potential to prophesize or to get across to another. Okay? So you're looking at, this is the being, a very special being, a 3-5, who can discover what's really necessary or needed, literally what's truly necessary. The byproduct of the journey to discover all of those things, of course, that are not necessary, because we're talking about a 3rd line mind. That 3rd line mind coming across those things that do not work. So anytime you're looking at 4, you have to see that when they're not operating correctly, these, especially the 3-4, martyr prophet, easily victims, because they can run down their immune systems, because what is that heretical body doing with that 4 system? Suffering from fatigue and exhaustion and burnout and all those things that we can see in the way that line qualities can be expressed. You can bring those values into the color level and be able to appropriate the language to help explain it to your clients so that they can see. What is necessary is the only thing that is supposed to be externalized in this case. Because if we look at the general keynote of what it is to be a 4, we're looking at externalization, right? Line quality, externalization or influence. So the only thing that's supposed to get out into the world, once we've trialed and errored with that thing, once we've found our new heresy, we're looking at the 4 being able to bring out and influence, particularly in person, because color 4s, when they are in person, they're way more powerful as far as their influential capacity to be able to get what is needed and supposed to be externalized to the other. So providing the information that needs to be externalized, providing what is necessary, a very different kind of approach than what we have seen so far. The heretical body, 5th line body, that is a color for profit, We've moved away from thirst and into touch. That's why in person, touch, either being calm or nervous as one takes in that touch. It's your ability for the brain body system itself, and wherever you're looking at the design, remember we're looking at the body. Body is the life. This is coming from your sun and earth. So we're looking at the way that the brain system functions. It's circumstantial. That is, it's either going to need calm or nervous. So the calm or nervous is going to be one of those things that helps develop the sensory capacity of touch and what is there in that being to recognize what is necessary. So being able to be in aura. The aura is touching, may be enough for some people. Other people may want to experience that physical touch. So if you're one of these, I do recommend that if you're going to do coaching online, try to get in touch in person with your clients first, because it strengthens your capacity to affect change in the other. That capability of touch. Now we move from the 3 Martyr color for profit that has a 4th color underneath that heretical body into the color 5 messenger. And again, 5 messenger, we're looking at sound. We're looking at sound. We're experiencing the acoustic sense of the other, because sound, vibrational resonance frequency, is the truth of this reality in this Maya. We're all sound vibrational formulas vibrating and coming into contact with others. So when we look at this shift here, it's very different than what we looked at before. Now we have a heretical body that has probably a ton of paranoia, because what is the paranoia? 5, what do they want from me? That built into the physical system, we have a repeating pattern, a true resonance of the heretical messenger, where it's very sensitive to the acoustic frequency. So if you're this, you might notice, there's just certain people you don't want to listen to. You just can't listen. You're listening to podcasts and some guest comes on and you're like, nope, this is not for me. Because you're organizing information for outward expression. And how do we take in information primarily through this vehicle? It's sound. It's attunement to sound. So link 5 color to sound, just like we link the individuality and the expression of that circuitry as sound. 5, sound. Okay? So the brain system that's oriented towards the delivery of information, remember impact for 5th line, or being able to focus on organizing this information for outward expression to strangers. And that expression might be verbal, it could be physical, it could be creative, it could be anything. But the physical system is pointed at resonance frequency, sound, word formulas, vibrational frequency that are taken in acoustically. So what you have on the other end is a person, let's say if the personality is experimenting with design even, and yet the mind is not resonant with this, because the mind is color for profit with its motivation of need. Then you have this dissonance between the color and the shifts that are taking place, even though it's a natural progression, all of us, perfectly designed, perfectly built for our life purpose fulfillment. What's necessary is no longer something that has to have a natural feel to it, because it can't. It can't. It's not in the box. Remember, 4-4, colors in the box. 3-3, in that box. 1-1, in that box. And what is the box? The 1 is the fear and the teacher. The 2 is the hope and the guru. The 3 is the desire and the priest. And here at the 4, breaking out of the box, 4 was profit, so it is need and profit. And then here, with the profit that's moving into the color 5, we're looking at color for profit that has a color 5 messenger. So need, messenger. And it's very different. It's not coming, as far as the need, motivational frequency, is not coming from a body that would naturally or effortlessly or easily support this. It's coming from something else entirely underneath the surface, underneath that heresy. So that's the difference. So even though it may not be quote unquote built perfectly, you look at resonance between colors and you think, oh, I like that. I want that. Remember, everything has its own trip. Here we have creativity. And so this motivation of need, the martyr who is a prophet motivated by need, is discovering all the things that are not worth externalizing. It's discovering all the things not worth influencing others about. Because why? It doesn't work. So this is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to release your mind from the conditioning of thinking that your mind can and in fact controls your life. It doesn't. Constantly having your mind absorbed in the mundane world, and because you can never really free your vehicle to express what its fundamental life purpose fulfillment is, if you're not operating in alignment, you can never fulfill the fullest experience and expression of the life work that you came here for, or whatever your fundamental potential is. So the experience of what it means to you to be motivated correctly, that is for your outer authority to operate correctly, has to come from your experimentation with being your own authority. That's the difference between a cult that tells you, I'm your leader, obey and follow me. I'm your guru, yeah, put your picture up and pray to me. No, this is about you being empowered as yourself. That's the difference, and that's why this system is here for children, because this process that we're moving into, it's a world that will demand nothing less than you making your own decisions that are trustworthy. So we do need all kinds of influences. This is the gift. It's a gift when it comes to discovering what does not work and what things are not worth putting out there into the world. So as an example, I'm a contagion, cross of contagion. You know, when things come along and I go, wow, this is amazing, you know, I want to pass that on. But this kind of martyr, finding the stuff, not going to talk about that, very different kind of martyr heretic, especially with that color 5 messenger underneath. It's not worth influencing others. Very different as far as how they're going to experience themselves. So the martyr prophet with a heretical messenger body can influence a lot of people. Think about what the prophet is here for, need, right? But uncomfortable with anything other than what it's familiar with, according to Ra. So when they come across that thing that is worthy of influence in this messenger system, because remember, 5th line body, 5th line or 5th color messenger is transpersonal. They're going to be put in situations where they discover they could influence a lot of people, but their personality is going to be very restrictive and uncomfortable in getting anything out other than what they're familiar with. This thing didn't work and it's not worth externalizing. So it's a very different motivational frequency, and it's not worth externalizing, so they find the essentials of what is needed to get across to the other as an outer authority. So this is whatever that variation is on whatever theme that their life's work is about. Sort of like a kind of reluctant messenger that only wants to tell certain people certain things that it really wants them to know, or what's really correct to pass on. And so then this is a mind that goes, why can't I do this thing? My mind should do this thing. Get it out to the world. And yet there's this resistance inside, when it's operating correctly, I might add, this resistance to sharing certain things, because only those things that are essential to get across. This is not a fifth. This is not a 5th personality, this is 3, right? So when we look at the 3rd line quality and the 4th color prophet, it's only being comfortable influencing others with those right things that are in alignment for it to get across. So a martyr, 3rd line, quote, being able to be of value both in terms of what you gain and in terms of what others gain from your experience and your honesty, unquote, says Ra. So all of this, personality construct-wise, is about failure. I oftentimes describe it as, you know how on Amazon we have all of those reports or, not testimonials, reviews, product reviews. And I'm the kind of person who's going to do the product review for the majority of the things that broke, that don't work, that are not practical, that are not worth buying. once in a very great while. I might have done it twice over I've been an Amazon lover since they just only sold books. So for a very long time, most of my reviews are all about the things that are broke, so that, yeah, being honest about other people's stuff. Easy, pretty easy, right? However, when it comes to your own mind and its process, do you have the capability of being able to admit the mistakes of the past of your own mind? Hey, I learned this, and this was flawed relative to what I thought, and now this is the experience that I'm having. And when I made that shift, that's when my world opened up, and I got a lot more people into my practice, because I had crossed that bridge of being able to disassociate from the mind's process as I give you lots of tools in how to do that, but primarily it is following your decision-making strategy so that you can be yourself. And then you get to see what realms open up because of your process, whatever it is that it happens to be. So most third-line beings from little tiny babyhood, as they grow, develop dishonesty. They lie, they cover their mistakes, they hide. They hide behind that false narrative. They lie to themselves, and then they lie to others. So when you can admit the lie because you've go, this doesn't work, instead of hiding the lie, go, hey, this error that I see, or this experience that I've had, or this thing that went wrong, in that it led me to an experience that I don't prefer. It's taught at a very young age that all the mistakes are bad, and that we were not supposed to make mistakes at all, and all that kind of stuff. When I was born, my mother said she looked at me. It was about when I was 30. And I was in the middle of a lot of crisis at the time. And my mother said she looked at me and she imagined me draped with silks and pearls and jewelry. And my martyr mind at the time, because I was 30, I hadn't come across deconditioning and aligning to human design yet. My martyr mind took that as, I can never fulfill that expectation that you have for me. And I haven't. I'm in the middle of bankruptcy. I was really in the middle of the thick of the real estate crisis that we had. So all in good time, when you get to that place of alignment, wherever it happens to be for you, not that you have to rush, you can't rush it, you can't force it, you can't push it. But when you get to that place as a 3, conscious 3, quote, if you don't tell the truth has a hard time existing, unquote, Ra. There's a lot of not telling the truth on the material plane. People hide, and they have these false narratives of, oh yeah, this worked for me, and of course it's going to work for you. Just do this X, Y, and Z. Those things that I did, it'll work for you. No, it won't, because you are a totally different person. Even if you take that framework of whatever it is, life moves quite dramatically and quite quickly. $10,000, $20,000, $60,000 programs. I'm talking about this because third line material plane, that were maybe hot to trot and worked a year ago, don't work today. So when it comes to telling the truth, constant reiteration, constant reframing and discovery of the challenge, the flaw, the lie, and the change that is required to happen, ultimately all of this comes back to operating in integrity. So what a 3-5 does, 3, the flaw that you discover becomes the universal principle on the heretical body side. And it's only when we get to that point that we can understand here in this configuration, whatever martyr heretic you happen to be, hi out there, the flaw that you discover becomes this universalization principle, the message that you can stand for, that you can embody, this enormous potential to literally change the world. Quote, unquote, Ra. This is what can sit here as a possibility, just waiting to be unlocked. So the martyr, watch your mind and watch the way that it plays within its frame. The heretic, watch your vehicle in order to live out the clarity of your messenger role. Because it's not about trying to figure out all of this stuff. This is just about witnessing it as it unfolds. So as a witness or passenger consciousness, this is what we're here for, who we think we are. who we think we are is built on the openness in the design. We'll see that in a little bit. And how you can witness this. So in other words, just experience it, watch it. You watch your vehicle begin to live out the clarity of what its genetic role. When you step into those great big archetypal shoes, this costume that you're here to wear this life, its distinct motivational frequency and physiological nature of being, or the quality of its consciousness as it lives in a vehicle that has been realigned. Okay? You can watch your mind and you can watch your vehicle. And this is to the development of passenger consciousness. How do we watch our vehicle, Laveena, if you keep telling us that your body is unconscious and you may be unaware? What you do is you listen to what other people say. So many more labels that I have been branded with. My God, you're a saint. Oh my God, you saved my life. I don't have saint. I don't have lifesaver in my design. And yet that's the projection field. So I get to see that. You know, people saying, you have the patience of a saint. And I'm like, do I? Oh, okay. Lately, anyway, as far as dealing with the challenges of what it is to be me in interaction with others who are not me. That's all. So your mind is constructed of the openness. This is a reminder, something deeply to understand. When you look at the openness that creates the structure for how your mind is going to work, we're not just talking about centers, the so-called not self strategies or adaptive conditioned strategies of the mind as its mental game is played in this reality that you think is so real, but is in actuality something that you recreate with your mind, which is part of the illusion, which is part of the program. You're a pattern within a pattern, looking at a pattern, and the way that this mind frames the context or the structure of how you're going to work for the rest of your life. Deconditioning doesn't change how your mind works. You are always going to give your outer authority through your openness because of the frame in which your mind processes things. So, absolutely nothing is going to change that. No decades of deconditioning changes that your mind is built on the openness. Full stop, hard stop, as far as the period is concerned. We're hardwired, so to speak, with the openness as our genetic potential for wisdom and learning and outer authority. So the potential of differentiation is in the definition. Definition being the life force, i.e. the channels, the strengths in your design, that hardwiredness, that fixedness that doesn't change over your entire lifetime. Not that you can't learn. And we learn through our cycles of experience and discovery, especially the three. So the openness frames the way the mind operates. Your personality role is expressed through your openness. This is another reason why third lines are here to be masters of the material plane. Okay, so your personality mind is a 3, and you resonate to all 64 hexagrams from a third line conscious perspective place. And in the wisdom potential, especially in the openness, you can start to witness or watch this. Just go read all the third lines in the 64 hexagrams. So as an example, if we look at Ra's chart, he had an open sacral, undefined root, undefined solar plexus, undefined head. So the only way he would ever express his personality role is through those themes. This is where his potential wisdom is. Wisdom, unless you have a particularly wise line like the 20.6 that says literally wisdom, wisdom lies in the openness. And I'm not just talking about open centers. I'm talking about any open channels or gate activations. Your personality role expressed through the wisdom of understanding the nature of life. Sacral, the energetic resource, the fecundity of being, the nature of being in this life, because it's a generator world, 67% approximately the population being that. We look at the wisdom of understanding the experiential process or the emotional intelligence process in the open or undefined emotional system, the solar plexus. What is it like one's emotional and social relational context to be in this world as ourselves? What is it like? This personality role expressed through the wisdom of understanding pressure, mental pressure, or physical pressure. So the mental pressure from above, the physical pressure from below, we humans are pressure sandwiches, and how it moves us or controls us or frames the way in which we think about ourselves. I think, therefore I am. No, you're not. Because there's so much more underneath the surface. So the martyr teacher can test and everything that may go wrong or may be flawed. As an example, if we look at the heart center, a martyr teacher is going to test every promise in enormous detail. Okay? 3-5 teacher, a martyr heretic who has a teacher underneath, martyr teacher, test, dig, those false promises, you'll discover that lie. You'll discover your witness. What is a false promise versus a true promise? Who out there can validate, this with me because they're making a promise and they didn't make good on it, particularly on the material plane. So, because material plane, third line, material plane, heart center, the hub, the center of the material plane. Because this is how our quote-unquote not self mind operates. Not self is not bad. It's just not self. It's not you. It's other. So it's our relational dynamic between us and other. And whatever dormant activation you can see in Laveena's chart, I'm not a martyr teacher. I'm a martyr priest. But you can see in this design, the activation there in that heart center is a 21, which is about money in the material plane. So I tend to come up against, from experience, making all the mistakes that one could make, this brain, body, system, and vehicle and mind could make on the material plane. Don't do that. Don't live on credit cards. Don't live according to false promises. Because if they don't keep up their promises, they don't pay you on time, you can't pay your bills either, as an example. Yeah? So we're looking at the true promise that you can discover, you can unearth. Because every promise you've ever heard, if you test it in enormous detail as a martyr teacher, when you happen to have an open ego, this is where you encounter those false promises and you learn wisdom. The not self mind operates with attempting to shore up that promise, that falsity, that false narrative, the not self, rather than going, oh, hey, that doesn't work. Yeah? So a martyr teacher, quote, to begin to understand the mind, you have to understand you're not self. Putting out the call to all you projectors out there especially, understand you're not self. And how do you do that? You have to begin to recognize what is not you. How do you do that? Study the other through this system, and you will see that. You will see it. Projector is here to master their human environment. Full stop. Period. However, of the 4 ways, with their accent on learning or fulfillment, one of the 4 incarnative ways that one could do such a thing. So, when you're here to learn, what you're here to investigate is the thing, the lie, this realm, material world, that your role is here to flower, because this is precisely what you're here for as far as the fulfillment of your life's purpose fulfillment. And if you are not operating in alignment, this martyr mind of yours in transference has no cognitive access to its unique differentiated intelligence that is coming from either the body or the mind when you're not operating in alignment. And so what happens is you live in a life where you cannot make sense of what's going on because your cognition has been dumbed down. Cognitive intelligence is what is our unique differentiating capacity when it comes to being a being who is awake. And that doesn't mean angels are going to start singing, you're going to float and, be able to immediacy of fly or whatever your mind thinks turn into a rainbow body and glow. It's not about that. It's about the acceptance of being here in this life and being in acceptance or love, honor, appreciation of everything that you experience as yourself. In other words, self-love. Self-love. Unconditional love of self that comes through living life in accordance or in alignment with what you came here for. And there's a delicious freedom in that. So even though the personality isn't making decisions, it still can't make sense out of what's going on if it's not operating in integrity. It just can't, because it's not tapped into its unique cognitive intelligence. So, martyr, heretic, if you're operating according to your strategy and authority, then you are on track and on path and on purpose, and you're going to see how the underneath layers of your color motivations and form differentiation and your cognitive intelligence elevates life for you. And then you get the success, satisfaction, peace, or surprise that you so richly deserve, that you were born for. So, personality transference, no access to its cognition when it's not operating in alignment. It can't make sense of what's going on. But if you are operating in alignment, you're in the right place, you have the right sensory information, you have the right people in your life, projector, or you're working with the right things, generator or people, of course, or you're impacting in the way in which you're here to impact, manifestor, or you're reflective of the nature of what it is to be uniquely you, reflector.